My name is Bert Richardson. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. Wasn't born in Texas. My dad was in the military, so I lived all over the world. I am almost a 26-year lawyer. I've spent most of my legal career in the San Antonio area. I worked in the DA's office as an intern while I was in law school, and then was hired as an assistant DA, and then I moved on to the U.S. Attorney's office. And while I was at the U.S. Attorney's office, I was appointed to the bench by Governor Bush. And I served there until the end of 2008. And since 2008, I've served as a senior judge across the state. I currently handle just a variety of cases all over the state, from death penalty cases to post-conviction writs to just handling general docket matters. I serve as an adjunct law professor at St. Mary's, and that's what I'm doing right now.
How would you describe your judicial philosophy?
Conservative, polite, professional. I expect lawyers to be prepared in court when they come to me. I'm of the opinion, at least at the district court or trial court level, everybody deserves a fair shake. Everybody should be treated with dignity, and I expect the lawyers to be prepared with their cases. I think most lawyers would tell you that I'm conservative on the bench, but fair.
As a senior judge, what is your relationship with the Court of Criminal Appeals? What are your experiences with the court?
My relationship with that court would be that it's not necessarily direct in that my assignments come from presiding judges across the state. There's 9 of those. I serve in 3 administrative regions: the San Antonio region, the Austin region, and the Kerrville region, which is the largest geographic region in the state. It goes from Bernie all the way to El Paso and Big Bend. And so those presiding judges assign me to cases that are ordered in the proper jurisdictions, and I go and conduct hearings, post-conviction writs, and then forward my findings of fact and conclusions of law to the Court of Criminal Appeals as a visiting judge or senior judge.
One of the concerns about the Court of Criminal Appeals is that it's too state or prosecutor friendly. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with this assessment? What's your opinion on that concern?
I don't want to say it's prosecutor friendly any more than it might be perceived as defense friendly. It's a Republican court. I think it's perceived as conservative, and it's probably the right label it would have for being a Republican court.
Well, I think one of the concerns is that it is entirely made up of former prosecutors. So do you think that plays a part in the allegation that it's too prosecutor friendly, or it's too biased to that one side, or do you think it's been fair up to this point?
Well, it would be easier to answer that question if there was a specific case we're talking about. I know that there are some judges on that court who have been both in private practice as defense lawyers and prosecutors. And there are some who were prosecutors. A lot of them come from a prosecution background, I think, because sometimes it's easier for them to run at that point. I think it's perceived as a Republican, conservative court, and in some cases they might be viewed as pro-state, but most of the cases that make their way up to that court have already resulted in convictions. That's the only way the cases get up there to begin with. So something's already happened at the lower courts that would require that they review what has happened at the trial court and decide whether or not there was some sort of error committed.
Since the Court of Criminal Appeals is the last court for criminal or capital punishment cases, do you think the court has properly vetted capital punishment cases in the past?
Well, I don't know if it's their job to vet the cases as much as it is to look at what the points of error are on appeal and deal with those. And you've got 2 different tracks on capital cases. You've got the direct appeal that's coming out of the trial court, and you have the post-conviction writ that really opens a lot more opportunities to some form of relief for defendants. And it seems more recently that they have been open to that, with new changes in science and technology. You're seeing people who've been wrongfully convicted released for the most serious crimes in our society. And they are the only court that can grant that relief, and they have done it.
What do you think, if you're elected over your term on the court, what do you think will be the biggest challenge for the court?
I think there's probably 3 or 4. Probably at the top of the list right now are the changes in science and technology that deal with DNA, arson, and how those issues will be resolved in light of whatever evidence was presented to obtain a conviction. Because it opens up, it's kind of like just different layers. It opens up other layers that the court needs to look at depending on the type of case that it is. I think another area is the Michael Morton Act and how the courts are going to deal with that, because in principle it's a great idea. In theory and in practice, I think law enforcement and district attorney offices and county attorney offices across the state are struggling with how do we get all of this information and make sure that it's provided to the defense, and if it's not, what are the remedies? And it's a hot button topic right now.
How do you, and not saying that there are any ethics issues with the court, but do you see any places where the ethics of the court can be improved over its current state?
Well, it's hard for me to second guess what somebody's done at that court. I think the only way to, I don't want to say improve, because then you're kind of implying that there's an ethical problem with the judges.
Well, it could have moderate to high levels of ethics, but I mean, there's always room for improvement.
Sure.
So.
I think you go to the court if you're elected, and you set your own standards, what ethics are, and make sure that you follow the rules. I think at least you can be an example to others. In the areas where I work, I'm respected by both sides of the bar for my ethics and being fair to both sides, and I think you're only one of 9. I don't think you can go there and start telling other people how to improve their ethics. It might come across as a little presumptuous and offensive.
What do you propose to improve the appeals process or even expedite it? How can
Make it go faster?
Yeah. Well, I mean, or does it need to go faster?
Yes and no. Good lawyer answer, I guess. I think one way to streamline it, and having been a senior judge for the last 5 years, I worked in over 40 counties in the last 5 years. I worked over probably half the state. Is most of the appellate courts in the state, and I think even the Supreme Court, I don't deal with them that much, have gone the way of online filing with all of their briefs and appeals and those types of things. The Court of Criminal Appeals has not done that yet. And at least in some of the big cases that I've handled, and I've done everything from death penalty cases on down that make their way to that court, it seems to stall the process some. There's a hassle of the court reporter getting everything printed, the court reporter being compensated, the court reporter filing those things, whereas in these days with the click of a button, a lot of times that can be done. That's one area. I'm maybe one of the few candidates in this race that has not actually worked at the Court of Criminal Appeals. I've spent my career as a state and federal prosecutor, so I don't know about the inner workings of it and how fast how long it takes to crank out certain types of briefs. But I think that's up to the individual judges. As far as death penalty cases, in Texas, it goes as fast as anywhere in the country, and I don't know if it really serves the citizens of this state to make it go any faster. When you keep in mind that those cases have direct appeals, post-conviction writs, they make their way through the federal courts. At each layer of those hearings, or each stop along the way, records have to be prepared and they have to be reviewed. And if you speed up that process, then you run into the worst of all possible disasters. And that is, you've got somebody who's wrongfully convicted. They haven't had the opportunity to make their claims, whether it's on a writ or direct appeal. And I think it'd just be a nightmare scenario. So in Texas, that process moves faster than anywhere else in the country. I don't see any need to speed it up.
I want to thank you for joining us today. How can people find out more about your campaign?
If you go to my website, it's electjudgerichandson.com. It has an informational video, has my contact information. Everything you need to know about me is on there. And if it's not there, then you can contact me via email, which is listed on the website.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, sure.